We have a little breaking news for you, and the question is Big 12 expansion over? Interesting conversations this afternoon. You know, I'm over here just trying to get around to golfing, and not a good one. But that's not really the point. We're on the phone playing golf this afternoon, talking to sources about Big 12 expansion. And a very interesting conversation that we've been working for several weeks is, how about Florida State trying to get to the Big 12? We had heard about that, but we had never been able to get confirmation until now that the Big 12 and Florida State have had conversations about a possible, marriage, nuptial between the Seminoles and the Big 12. And it makes a lot of sense from a football perspective. When you look at the brands that Florida State brings to the table, you're good in basketball. They, again, are reestablishing themselves as great in football. Jake, do you like Florida State to the Big 12?
I mean, it's okay. I think that Florida State would obviously still be a conference contender in the Big 12, just the same way they are in the ACC. I think for the Big 12, you know, Florida State's an interesting proposition because you already have UCF. And I think that Florida State is a situation where you're obviously getting a team this year that is national championship caliber by most people's measuring stick on the football field this year. But I think that the word of consistency comes back again. You know, if I'm Brett Yormark and I'm the presidents of those member institutions that are already there, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at Florida State like, man, I'm not so sure that we would want to add Florida State because they've been a pain in the ass for the ACC for a minute now. You know, can you imagine having that type of rhetoric and that type of bullish behavior in the Big 12? Like, I'm not so sure that that would fly over so well. I'm not so sure that that would really come across well. And I think that Florida State is someone who likes themselves a lot. And I think that the Big 12 thrives and it has all this unity and this forward momentum because there's not one school over another that's like, yeah, we're the best, we're the best, we're the best, pay us more, pay us more, pay us more. Now, we all know Texas is the best program in the Big 12 right now, but Texas and Oklahoma are leaving. And so who's going to be that new top dog? So for the Big 12, I don't know that Florida State could even step into that role. And so for those reasons, I'm not sold on Florida State to the Big 12 as far as how good of a fit that would be. But I do think it's worth the conversation, at least for the Big 12.
Yeah, and I think the other headline here is that Florida State and UNC, I am told, have had conversations with the Big 12 about joining the conference. Now, my feeling is, and this is something we have not been able to get an answer to, we have called our sources at the Big 12, and we have not been able to confirm or deny these reports. I want to make that very clear. But I would also point out that I think that these are not ongoing conversations, and I want to make that very clear. I think these are conversations that when the Calford situation with the ACC was happening, I absolutely think Florida State, I absolutely think UNC, Clemson, Miami, I think there were a lot of schools in the ACC looking for a backup plan, and maybe that's all this was. But I think it is really important to point out, Florida State, North Carolina had more than just cursory conversations with the Big 12, according to our sources. We're told that Florida State and North Carolina had very serious conversations about what the money would look like, what a transition could look like. The question remained, how able is Florida State to get out of that ACC grant of rights, which almost mirrors the grant of rights in the Big 12, including the new one that's about to begin in a year. So there's a lot of legwork if this were ever to happen. But I do think Cal and Stanford joining the ACC pretty much put an end to these conversations. I have no indications that they are ongoing. I have no indications, and I want to make this very clear, I have no indications that today the Big 12 is trying to do all it can do to add Florida State and North Carolina. I don't believe that's the case. I think these were conversations that were happening when instability was the word of the day, if you will, in the ACC. And this makes a lot of sense. And I think it's particularly noteworthy because it shows you the attractiveness of the Big 12 to power brands like North Carolina basketball and Florida State football. I think that is a critical point. Brett Yormark has gone out of his way to make it very clear that basketball is going to be a revenue source for the Big 12. North Carolina certainly fits that bill. But having said that, I think it's also very clear that the Big 12 has taken a big jump forward as it comes to stature and reputation. This league is no longer one that is sullied by the departure of Oklahoma and Texas, by the raid of the SEC. Those days are over in the Big 12. I think stability now is the rule of the day in the Big 12, and I think teams like Florida State and, frankly, everybody in the ACC had a lack of stability when we were talking about Cal and Stanford and the questions surrounding whether or not that would happen. This makes perfect sense to me. But I'm with you, Jake. I don't know. I'm not willing to sit here and say that Florida State's still a problem child. I think things have calmed down. The temperature in the room of the ACC has come down significantly. So I'm not willing to say that Florida State's a problem. But I think the bigger question here is, would you as a Big 12 fan, would you as a Florida State fan want to see the Seminoles and the Tar Heels in the Big 12? I think it's a no-brainer. I think Florida State is actually a very good fit. I think when you look at the potential that is in Florida right now, it is clearly dominated by Florida on the field at the moment. If Florida State goes to the college football playoff, that story completely changes. Mario Cristobal certainly has Miami going in the right direction. Jake, I think if the Big 12 can add more Florida presence, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of credence to that. My biggest thing with, Florida State as far as them being a problem child or not is just that, once a problem child, gonna be a problem child again at some point. And I think that it's a different way of doing business in the Big 12. Like, in the ACC, it very much is a league of, hey, the haves and the have-nots, meaning that, Florida State, Clemson, obviously, and this is in football, by the way. Obviously, in basketball, it's a totally different picture. You've got UNC, Duke, Virginia, and other programs that show up once in a while. But I just think the ACC is not a level conference. It's very top-heavy. It's not like a really strong top-to-bottom product. And I think the Big 12, for the most part, is, especially with the additions coming in next year. I mean, again, the Pac-12's biggest problem is they're too strong top to bottom. Their bottom half team can beat the top half team on a random Saturday and ruin their path to the college football playoffs. So Florida State to the Big 12, I think, doesn't really change a huge landscape outside of the fact that, yeah, you have another Florida school. Yeah, because I think that adding Utah, adding Colorado, adding the Arizona schools, like, you're trying to push west. You're trying to expand out that way. That's the clear, philosophy for the presidents.
I think if you can add a power brand and a power athletic department like Florida State, I think you have to do that. And I think, this is not the first flirtation we've had with Florida State and others from the ACC and the Big 12. Two, I don't think this is the last we've heard of this. And I think this is such a significant story because I think we are far from done with realignment in the next 5 years. I think it is going to be a yearly thing. I think depending on what happens with the Mountain West and Oregon State and Washington State, I think you're going to have some kind of reaction to that. I don't think there's any doubt that if we're talking about the P4 leagues, the ACC is easily the most vulnerable of those leagues. And I think the most vulnerable members, or the members most likely to leave the league, I don't think there's any doubt it's Carolina and Florida State. I think Clemson, I don't know what to make of Clemson. I do think that without question, Florida State's a power brand. Yeah. There is no doubt about that. North Carolina's a power brand. If you can add them to the Big 12, you do that.
Well, I think UNC is obvious, right? I mean, that's pretty straightforward. Like, everybody would want UNC.
UNC's a basketball powerhouse. This is a philosophical debate on some level too, because are you going to make more money in football? Yeah, you are. Does North Carolina make you significantly more revenue just because of their basketball brand? They do. They absolutely do. But if you're talking about making money on ACC additions, Florida State has to be part of that. I think Mike Norvell is in a very critical moment in time at Florida State. You cannot turn into a bust. That BC performance over the weekend, I think that was terrifying if you're a Florida State fan. But in 3 to 5 years, I have real reservations about the ACC and its viability as a conference. I don't believe that Florida State and North Carolina were close to joining the Big 12. The framework for this stuff is being laid now. I don't have any doubt about that. If you look at the Big 12 not wanting to get near 20 teams at this point, that's not accidental. I think the infrastructure cost and I think the marquee and the name brands that are available down the road in expansion were just too great. I think if you look at where the Big 10 is, man, I think there is going to be an absolute battle amongst free agents, if there are such a thing anymore, between the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12. And I am not certain that the ACC survives. Frankly, if you're the ACC, I think they are the weakest of the P4 brands. And it's why it is really important if Oregon State and Washington State win this lawsuit and they wind up gaining control of the Pac-12 brand. That's why this conversation matters. Because if that league survives and the ACC winds up folding, I mean, the possibilities are endless. So when we talk about, hey, Florida State to the Big 12 from the ACC, North Carolina, those teams in that league, those schools in that league, were looking for options. And the thing I would remind you is I would look further down the road. In 5 years, will these leagues be the same? You and I both know they will not. And if the ACC breaks up and Florida State ends up in the Big 12, that didn't happen 5 years in the future. That started with these conversations, which I am told are less than a month old. So, and indeed, it could absolutely be when Cal and Stanford join the ACC. These are going to be ongoing conversations. There are going to be off-the-record text messages, phone calls, meetings, conferences. You are going to see that the relationships between Florida State and North Carolina and the Big 12, they're not going to weaken. They're only going to get stronger.
Schemers trying to control their little world.
Absolutely. Because the next time the ACC is vulnerable is probably going to be the last time. And I don't think anybody doubts that the ACC is going to find itself in a precarious situation again, because I also have to believe, as many, many people have told me, Cal and Stanford will become a drag on the ACC. There is no doubt about it. The distance between is just too great. And if you are Stanford and Cal, is the ACC a long-term solution for your athletic revenue and athletic competition needs? It is not. There's just no way that it can be, because you're taking so much less money to travel and spend so much more money. That's why this conversation matters. That's why the Pac-12 surviving as a brand matters, because we're not finished. We're just getting started. And I think, and I don't know what you think, Jake, and maybe in the comment section today, I'd love to hear from you on this. I do not believe for a second that the ACC is on solid footing.
Well, no, I mean, how could they be? I mean, I think that the UNC to the Big Ten narrative is a really attractive one if you're UNC. I think Florida State is more of a fit in the Big 12 than they would be in the Big 10, but obviously the Big 10 is more money. And I think, honestly, if we're gonna have a conversation about looking 5 to 10 years into the future, and we're gonna talk about change, like, if I'm the Big 12, there's no way I could have gone to 20 in this cycle, because I know that I'm going to have viability and, strength of relationship with my TV partners to be able to add when the ACC falls apart. Because if you don't add during that time, you're the next ACC. I mean, that's what we're seeing, right? Like, you didn't have Oregon and Washington going to the ACC, right? They went to the Big 10. You didn't have the Four Corners going to the ACC. They went to the Big 12. So the problem is that the ACC didn't really have great options to expand with, to basically create an insurance policy for Florida State wanting to leave.
That's right.
And I think that's the trouble, is like, now it's gotten to a point where you have Florida State and a couple of these other schools that are working with TV partners to get something done, to forge a path to them leaving the conference no matter what. And that made the ACC go out and add a brand like SMU. With all due respect. And that's the issue. You're forcing your conferences to do things they don't want to do. And again, I will keep saying this. If the ACC had one more recently, if the ACC had made more money like the SEC and the Big Ten have.
Man, you love this talking
but
point.
It's just true. It's just true. Florida State, maybe Florida State wouldn't want to leave if their conference was the SEC, right? If their conference was one of the top conferences
but
in
isn't
the country.
that what's so special about North Carolina? North Carolina's got a national championship or played for a national championship at basketball 2 years ago now. Missed the tournament this past year. Like, North Carolina is that brand. And it's what I've said, and I know that Florida State fan comes out spitting piss and vinegar over this. I think North Carolina is the best brand in the ACC.
Suckmyass.com.
Well, and I understand you get upset about it. Florida State fan loses their mind over this, but is it even arguable? And I'm not sure that Florida State's the number 2 brand in the ACC. Now, it probably is.
Notice he said brand, not football team.
But is there a bigger athletic brand in the ACC than North Carolina basketball?
No.
I don't think there is.
Well, and I think, you look at Duke, and Duke's not been the same guy since Coach K retired. And I think
Duke
that's
is not
tough.
Duke.
Like, you knew that Duke was going to go through a transition period. You knew they weren't going to be exactly the same. But I think if you're the ACC, Duke basketball has always been that juggernaut in your conference to compete with UNC. And that's what I think is tough. Like, I see UNC still competing at the top of the game. Not that Duke has fallen way off, but you know what I mean? Like, hey, if you're not competing for national championships the way you were under Coach K, like, it's not the same thing.
Well, you haven't won a championship in almost 10 years. I mean, it's 2015 since you won an NCAA tournament.
And we haven't even gotten to Dabo not winning on the football field. And so that's what I'm saying.
I don't even think Clemson's in the conversation.
No, but my point is that if you're the ACC, you're seeing some of this across the board now. You're seeing Dabo not win as much. Duke's not winning as much on the basketball
Florida
floor,
State
right?
football's not winning
Florida
as much.
State's not winning as much.
Miami's not Miami.
Right? And they're trying to come back, right? I agree. Mario's got them going in the right direction, but they're not what they were. So that's why I'm saying, like, yeah, I do love the winning narrative because it seems like the conferences that win all the time end up getting paid the most money and don't have to worry about whether their conference is going to dissolve.
It matters. And again, it's why I point so passionately to North Carolina. I mean, obviously, you haven't won a championship since 2017, right? But you were runner-up in 2022. You've been to the Final Four.
Like, you've been in the conversation.
You have been relevant in college basketball. And now Duke obviously has had a ton of recruits, Zion the least of which.
Yeah.
But, you look at the R.J. Barretts, the Kyrie Irvings. Like, I mean, you look at the names who have gone through Duke. I'm not at all insinuating Duke basketball is dead or John Shire's terrible. None of that. But my point is North Carolina continues to be relevant. And I think when I look at the ACC, I still maintain the biggest brand is North Carolina. And I go back to what we've reported about the Big Ten not wanting to go to 20. I think the Big Ten would very much like to add Notre Dame football, and they would very much like to add North Carolina basketball. And if they get North Carolina, I don't think there's any doubt that they would like to have every bit of Notre Dame athletics in the Big Ten.
Yes.
Is that going to happen? I don't know. Does the ACC survive? My feeling is it does not. I think in 5 years, the ACC is going to be vastly different than it is today. And I think Florida State's going to be in another league. I think Carolina is going to be in another league. I don't know. Are NC State and Carolina still, tied at the hip? Maybe. Is Clemson going to the SEC? I've heard that a million times over the last 6 weeks.
We built this program on NIL.
I've heard it repeatedly that Clemson's going to the SEC. We'll see. I don't know. But what I do know is Florida State and North Carolina, according to our sources, have spoken to the Big 12 and had conversations, very serious conversations about, hey, what would it take? What does it look like? Doing their homework, doing their due diligence, as they should be. And I think Brett Yormark has shown you he can act swiftly, and he does not mind going after big fish.
Yeah.
And I think again, it just is, it is, expansion will never be over.
Yeah.
Expansion will never, ever be over in the Big 12, in college football, in college basketball. I think you are always going to be fighting for it. And as I think you probably should, because Florida State and North Carolina are worth fighting for.
Yeah.
All right, let's get your comments in here. Less of us, more of you. Make sure you hit the like button on the Monty Show. We're also pushing towards 50,000 subscribers on the Showgram. Thank you very much to everybody who has subscribed to our show. In the last 28 days, we've added 14,400 subscribers.
Let's go, baby.
That is wild in my mind. I appreciate every one of you that is here. Please make sure you give us a thumbs up. And if you are not subscribed, please consider subscribing. The Monty Show is, as always, presented by Bucked Up Energy. The official energy drink of The Monty Show is Bucked Up.
In 2016, we started out as a sports nutrition company. We started getting into energy drinks about 2 years ago. We're on pace to do about 30 million energy drinks this year. Come check it out. We just got in variety packs. We got some of our 3 best flavors. We got Blood Raz, Rocket Pop, and Mango Tango. So if you've never tried Bucked Up, now's the time to try it.
Variety packs. Variety packs of Bucked Up Energy are available now at buckedup.com. And the fact that Mango Tango, one of our favorite Bucked Up Energy drinks, is in the variety pack, get to buckedup.com right now. Use the promo code Monty20 to get 20% off at checkout. And again, what makes Bucked Up different than all of the other brands out there? Quality ingredients that make quality products that do exactly what they say they're going to do. My fault. I want to blame Jake, but it's my fault we played shitty golf today because I did not bring the buckshot from the Monte de Casa Crib Dilly
Right.
and the place where we'd be staying and procreating. Anyway, the point is I did bring the buckshot to the golf course this morning. Shot an 8 over at Glenmore Golf Course in South Jordan. Not good.
Dynasty is not over.
The dynasty is not over. I will break par before I'm dead. Probably not. But the point is, buckshot helps us golf better. Bucked Up Energy. Every single day we tell you on the show, Grim, we drink Bucked Up. We hit the buckshot. I've got Blue Raz in my hands today, you guys. Can you see it? Yes, sir. Right there. And you know what I love about this? I had a headache yesterday. Mrs. Monty had a headache this morning. What did she do? She popped a little buckshot. It's a great headache cure. Knock it down. Bucked Up, buckedup.com. Use the promo code Monty20. Get 20% off at checkout. Who's in the comments section today? Cleveland Rocks. It gives us $5. Ooh, bad knee injury for Nick Chubb last night. Our greatest running back since Jim Brown. His career's probably over. Watson looks completely lost. Head coach is mediocre. The positive, we play Chicago this year. Had to torch the Bears.
You just had to
do
work it in right there at the end, dude.
And I appreciate that you paid $5 to do it. Because I should pay you $5 to tell the truth about the Bears, and that is that they're horrendous. Rick Jr. for $9.99. All right, Hacks, do your thing and spill the beans on the Big 12 expansion noise. I believe we did. Zesty's Retro and Games, a member for 6 months.
Let's go, baby. Okay.
Let's go. Thank you, Zesty. Let's go. 6 months, Rock Chalk Jayhawk beat BYU. Max Tooley, BYU linebacker, will be here in 2 hours. He'll join the show to get you ready for Kansas. John Teal for $2. SFU gives Big 12 a true blue blood. Imagine versus Prime. That'd be all right. TJ Beck for $5. Who wins the Big 12 next year? Utah or Colorado? Or, oh man, I think a year from now there's going to be a lot of teams that are a lot better, a lot higher level of quality. I have to believe that UCF gets better. By the way, UCF fan, crawl out of my ass on Twitter, please. Like, when did we become the anti-UCF Twitter account? We have supported UCF roundly on this show, and I get them, and they're like, "Hey, if we beat Kansas State, will you say nice things about us?"
Are we clear on that?
Dude, we talk about flipping UCF all the time.
Yeah, John Reese Plumlee.
And I said, JRP, without JRP, you're not the same team. We'll find out this weekend.
Ain't no reset.
But by no means, UCF fan, do you need to remind us about UCF? We're huge fans of the Bounce. No, we're huge fans of the Bounce House. Kenneth Maynor, UNC is the biggest brand not in the SEC or Big Ten other than Notre Dame. Flagship hello? I didn't do apomedemics very well. Flagship academic powerhouse in a booming market. They can pick where they go. I would agree with that. I think UNC is very, very, very appealing to just about everybody. Look at that. My goddamn left fielder hit a home run today. Kyle Schwarber, good to see you. How about Shaner, a member for a month on the show?
Shaner. Members only
Let's go. I want to play in the ACC, said no athletic department ever. Well, except SMU.
And Stanford and Cal, but Cal didn't really have a choice.
They didn't really, Ryan Willie for $5. Will NBC push Notre Dame to the big? I think the only thing that can make Notre Dame football join a conference is scheduling depletion. If this next automatic qualifier college football playoff equation includes a minimum of P5 opponents. And again, remember what we're talking about. The automatic qualifiers for 2024, when the college football playoff expands, they are not set. That is up in the air for negotiation, and the G5s are significantly represented on the college football playoff committees. And I think the G5s are going to want their spots at the table. And I think there's no doubt that the highest ranked conference champion in the G5 will in fact get an automatic qualifier.
Yeah.
But will there be a G5 at large? We don't know that yet. And if there's not, will G5s push to make sure that all the P5s have to play 9 or 10 conference games?
Y'all want to play.
I think that's absolutely a lever that the G5 teams can pull. And if I'm the G5s, I absolutely am pulling that lever, because there is no question in my mind that teams like Georgia are getting a free ticket to the college football playoff.
Yes.
Look at that schedule. You look at Ohio State this weekend. One of the conversations today is Ohio State at Notre Dame, the biggest game of the weekend. More to the point, is it the biggest game of the year for both Notre Dame and Ohio State?
Notre Dame, our mother.
And it might well be the biggest game of the year. And that's very telling for Ohio State, because Ohio State and Michigan don't play anybody. Georgia absolutely does not play anybody. USC, I think, has one of the easiest schedules in the Pac-12. These major brands are having free rides to the college football playoff, and I think if you're not going to give 2 automatic qualifying spots to the G5, they're going to make that ride a whole hell of a lot bumpier. And I think as they should. If I am a G5 athletic director, if I'm a G5 representative in the college football playoff committee system, I'm trying to bust balls and make the P5s play 9 or 10 conference games.
Yes. Suck it up, man. You guys have
Suck
an
it up,
auto bid to the
Buttercup.
college football playoff. As you said, Georgia's got a free ticket. See what you did there? Ticket. Georgia's got a free ticket to the college football playoff, and they rolled up in their first team all SRT squadron. We get it. If I was the G5, I'd be busting balls too.
Yeah, I think it is going. I think you have to. If you are the G5 in this conversation, you have to push for 9 to 10 conference games. There's just no doubt about that. Kyle Wilson for $5. We are moving to a 2-conference Super League. And as an Oregon State alum, first of all, we're not moving to a 2-conference league. We're not moving to 2 super conferences. I don't think we will ever get anywhere near that. I'm not the guy that's like, okay, conference number 1 with 700 members. Here I am. Why would anybody want? How many teams are in a Super League? And I think this is a fascinating conversation. Ask yourself this question. How many teams make up these Super Leagues? Because let's say that you have 4 leagues right now that have what? How many? Let's just say 16, 18. Okay. So if we're looking at 80 teams, how are you telling me we're going to have 2 40-team super conferences?
No.
Why would anybody sign up for that?
Well, I think the tough part is it's super uncharted water. So, you don't know, none of us know how the group of TV networks would respond to what I would call a dual conference setup, right? Two super conferences. It's almost like the NFL at that point, right? If you got 2 conferences, at the NFL, 15 each or whatever, in college football, it'd be bigger than that. I think you'd have to have at least 25 each. But I think the real question is, and this really applies to the ACC first and foremost, if your conference blows up or whatever, or dissolves, and let's say the top dogs, Clemson, UNC, Duke, Virginia, Florida State, they all survive and they move on to, another power conference, whatever it might be, of the 3 left. But the ones that don't make it, right? Whoever you want to point to, your low-end ACC team, do they just get relegated to the G5s? I mean, is that what we're doing? So basically, we're gonna chop this thing down. Hey, the power conferences are getting smaller, but we're widening out the base at the G5 level. Because if that's the case, yeah, the G5s are gonna push for 10 game schedules or more, obviously at that point. And you're going to have to abide by what they think. I mean, that's the reality of the situation.
And I just don't see that as a realistic possibility.
But you can't deny. First, the Pac-12 melted down, and now we're getting. I wouldn't even say smoke yet. It's too early to say it's smoke. But I would say, we're starting to heat up a little bit. Like, I think that there's
in the ACC.
Yeah, there's too much conversation
I
around
think it is a foregone conclusion at this point. The ACC in its current incarnation is very short-lived. I don't have any. I mean, is there anybody watching this show right now, of the 3,000 people who have watched the show today? Is there anybody who thinks that the ACC in its current form survives another 3 years?
No, but isn't that what we were getting on the Pac-12, right? Like, the conversation on the Pac-12 was, hey, this conference is going to change, but they're going to survive, right? I mean, they're going to lose some schools, but they're going to survive.
Oh, that's true.
That's what we were told, or what everyone was talking about with the Pac-12, and so I think there's
true,
a lot
yeah.
of fear out there about the ACC. I'm not saying the ACC is going to dissolve tomorrow or even in 3 years or 5 years. But what I am saying is that if the ACC were to dissolve, at that point, definitively, we're heading to a two-conference system. But it's going to take a lot for that to happen.
I'm just asking, if it's a two-conference system, are we going to have 20 teams and that's it? Because you can't tell me that of the hundreds of universities across this country that currently compete, you can't tell me they're going to yeah.
But it's not hundreds in football. It's only hundreds in all the sports that don't matter.
It is hundreds. What is it? If you look at the D1 level, are you telling me every Division I university at the D1 level is going to be like, yeah, give those 40 schools, they're the ones that let them have all the money in the championships?
But my point is, I don't think it's going to be up to them. That's what I think the issue is that you have this top cut of school that is constantly in the top 25 or constantly, in the Elite Eight, right? They're really good athletically. And so over the years, they've made all this money and they're getting the payments and they're building their coffers. And so they have a lot of power in the conversation. And so, yeah, is a school happens to be a D1 school in a Power 5 conference or even out of a Power 5 conference, let's say. I mean,
Abilene Christian.
Dude, nobody gives a damn what
From the
Abilene
WAC.
Christian has to say, dude. Nobody cares, bro. Like, with all due respect,
Cookman.
dude. Like, at least with Bethune-Cookman, you've heard of them, dude. Abilene Christian, like, I've heard of
Cal
it.
Baptist.
But, like, come on, man.
Central Connecticut State.
Like, nobody cares. Nobody cares,
I
dude.
think it's crazy if you believe that we're going to two conferences, because I'm just going to ask you. Somebody put a number out of all the people who say, "Oh, we're going to two super conferences, bitches." Okay, how many teams?
30 apiece.
So you think it's just 60 universities that compete for the highest level of college football in this country?
Well, but here's my point. Isn't that what we're already doing?
No, it's not. If you're eliminating G5s at that point, because anybody in the ACC, anybody at the bottom of the Big Ten, Purdue, Indiana, Rutgers, Maryland, they just disappear?
Well, nobody's saying they just disappear, but they haven't appeared in the last how long?
But who cares? That doesn't mean that you can just flush them like they're excrement. Like, are you kidding me right now?
But the point is that's what we just did in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
That's literally what we just did.
I don't see a super conference setup happening. I don't think that there is any way, shape, or form that happens.
Wow.
I would be stunned. I would be, at least not in the current incarnation of college sports. I could see, listen, could I see tiers or, there could be lines of demarcation. Hey, I don't know. Relegation is never coming to North American sports.
No.
Forget the word relegation. It's not happening.
What I'm saying is that like my opinion is that like Indiana is an example. When's the last time you heard about Indiana doing anything?
Indiana basketball is incredibly relevant.
Wow.
Indiana basketball in the Big Ten is very relevant. It's one of the best brands of basketball in the Big Ten. Now, is Indiana football viable? On some level. Is Purdue a football university? It used to be. Drew Brees says so. But they're much more of a basketball school. The bigger story is like Rutgers. What happens with the Mel Tucker-less Michigan State University now? What happens with, small school that's just not relevant, yet Vanderbilt? Is Vanderbilt relevant in anything other than women's basketball?
Baseball.
Okay, baseball.
But again, that's not revenue generating for the most part.
I cannot see it. 2, 3, maybe 3. I think you have to have 4 at a minimum. And if you're only going to have 4, they all probably have to have 25 teams.
But again, I don't disagree. But you look at the AP Top 25, like it's the same caliber of school. Like sure, Indiana's got a good basketball program. Yes, they do. But they're not like, I don't know. I don't think that Indiana is like, pulling any kind of, they don't have a huge voice in the room. Like, I think if you're talking about brands that control things, like, obviously we have our usual suspects. And my point is those usual suspects have been making more money than schools like Indiana for how long now? And when you have more money, you've got more control and more of a voice. And that's the problem in college athletics right now, is that the teams that win are getting more exposure, so more people see them.
But then what do you say to SMU?
What do you say? They bought their way in. Okay. If you want to buy your way in, fine. Somebody will take you.
So then it's all about money.
That's the case now, no?
I don't believe it is. Florida State doesn't have more money than anybody else. Why would they be out to
But why is Florida State upset? Florida State's upset because they think they should be getting paid more money than anyone else in the ACC.
Yeah, I don't see 2 super conferences ever coming to fruition in college sports. I just think there are too many hurdles to climb.
Yeah.
I truly do. Kyle said, we're moving to a 2-conference Super League, and as an OSU alum, I hate it. Relegating over half the teams in FBS, regardless of record, is bad business. And I just don't think that's happening.
But what is good business? What's good business, right? So if that's bad business, and I don't even necessarily disagree, I'm not saying it's a good idea from every single angle. Like, again, anytime you change something in college athletics, there's always going to be the bad side to it, no matter what you do. So the question really is, what brings the healthiest system for everybody involved? Because I can tell you right now, Rutgers isn't getting paid. Right?
Rutgers is not getting paid.
I don't know, Nebraska until this year wasn't really getting paid recently.
Yeah.
Outside of the fact they're in the Big Ten with that TV deal. That's my point. That's why I keep saying, it's not just the SEC schools. Look around college football. It's the big brand in each conference that just seems to eat every single year, and then everyone else is just kind of sitting here going with the flow. So what happens when the ACC dissolves and little guy in the totem pole has nowhere to go because the Big 12 has been waiting. The Big 12, let's say, hasn't gone to 20 because they've been waiting for the bigger brands. And nobody gives a damn about low-end ACC school. That's the problem.
Look at Boss Frog. We're going to as many conferences that the networks dictate.
Yeah.
Unless the Mountain West or American starts spitting out national championship programs annually, the networks are in control. By the way, hello, Jake. Hey, Boss Frog's here. He just wanted...
Boss, I admire your determination saying hi to me every day. Thank you.
Hi, Jake. Hey, buddy. Boston Mapes.
Hey, Boston.
Hoping to see the Cougs step up for the biggest game in recent history and make those Kansas fans eat Jayhawk. Let's get Kalani. Working on Kalani. They've said no for a month straight. But again, Max Tooley joins us after practice today, so 5:30, 5:45. We'll keep you up to date on that. Ryan Willey has been a member for a month now, Ryan.
Let's go, baby.
Appreciate you. I think there will be 3 super conferences with 24 teams. Oof. Scheduling.
Okay, great. 3 conferences. But you see my point, right?
Yeah.
It's like we're going to be in this place where okay, 2, 3 conferences, whatever. Like 5 conferences is not viable anymore because people want the same amount of access.
I agree with that.
You can't have Oregon and Washington, 2 power brands, not getting the same level of access as Ohio State because of geography and time zones. That's a problem, which is why Oregon and Washington, made the move they did. And again, I just keep pointing this out. Like, I think that Brett Yormark understands the way things are moving. He sees the path in front of him. He sees the fact that, my conference doesn't make what the Big Ten makes off the TV deal. But what is my conference? Well, it's necessary. It's needed. And so if Brett Yormark in the Big 12, let's say we do go to a 3-team system, I guarantee you Brett Yormark will have that conference positioned to be necessary, to be a thing that has to stay.
I don't disagree with you on that. Kenneth Maynor, for $2, Wake Boston College should be planning AAC invites.
Perfect example.
How did Boston College lose
example.
that game this weekend?
So we're sitting here watching Boston College take a dump on the field. And now, and then Boston College fan wants to complain about not getting equal opportunity, or why are we not?
Maybe
on TV
don't pull
more?
that Florida State face mask, and you'd have won the game.
By the way, I think there's another conversation, probably not for today, but I think there's a serious conversation about schools that should or should not be playing football. Like, it seems like every school wants to play football, but not every school can afford to play football. Or from a profitability standpoint.
Yeah, that's a different fucking show, man. You ain't wrong about that. Delaric, my guy, what's up, Delaric? $5. I think ESPN, Fox, etc. are wanting power 3 to 20 teams each, and then start getting the group schools to 20 after getting power set up. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I think that ESPN will have a significant voice in whatever happens.
Yes.
Because they currently are the moneymaker in college football. There's no question about it. And I'll just go back to Coach Prime and everybody, all the red asses saying, why don't you guys talk about Coach Prime every single day? Maybe, I don't know, maybe you guys could talk about Bethune-Cookman. We talk about Coach Prime and we don't talk about Bethune-Cookman because Coach Prime, Colorado, did you guys see this number? Did you guys see the number that Colorado and Colorado State did? An astounding 9.3 million viewers.
I'm for real.
The single largest late window game ever.
I'm for real.
On ESPN. And one of the 5 largest audiences in the history of college football on ESPN and ABC.
Yes.
Well, hey, why don't you guys talk about Sac State? Can we get a little Sac State conversation on? No, you can't. Well, what about Fresno State? No, you can't. They won 29-0, bro. Congratulations.
No.
Bro, I thought you said 9.3 million. Georgia did 5.4 million against South Carolina. Coach, do
you believe?
2 in the the game was on at 2 in the morning. Hello? Are you serious? Why do you think Jake and I are playing really shitty golf this morning? He's like, hey man, why do you think USC's kicking off at 9 o'clock Pacific?
Like literally, look at this. I think we have the Pac-12 graphic they put out about this. Are you for real right now that USC is at 9 a.m.? What? Bro.
Oh my God. Bro. Look at these kickoffs, man. 9 a.m. Pacific time, USC at Colorado. 9 at that's next Saturday. Like that's wild. Arizona State and Cal on the Pac-12 network.
Dude.
And then of course you have Utah and Oregon State on FS1 at 7 Mountain. Why are we kicking off USC and Colorado at 9 a.m.? Oh, that's right, because it's Coach Prime. And it's on Fox, and Fox wants its pound of flesh. That's
big
why.
noon kickoff. All that matters is the East Coast viewer.
But if you think about it, what did Boss Frog say? Hey, the TV networks are going to get what they want. Fox wants Coach Prime on Fox. Okay, let's kick off at 10 a.m. for the second time this year. Because remember, Colorado and Nebraska, what time did they kick off?
Yeah.
Yeah, they kicked off at 10 a.m.
Want it.
Yeah.
They're thirsty.
Yeah.
I mean, it is unbelievable.
And by the way, Colorado fan, let's relax with, hey, we're beating USC. Just chill out, dude. I don't care what time that football game is. USC's beating that ass.
Real quick before football at 50, I do want to get to Coach Prime. Talking about this Henry Blackburn hit. You remember on Travis Hunter, he got knocked out, and it's really stupid. And I hope nobody on this show did it, but Colorado fans sending death threats to Henry Blackburn and his mother and publishing their phone numbers over the Travis Hunter hit. Please don't do that.
Henry Blackburn is a good player who played a phenomenal game. He made a tremendous hit on Travis on the sideline. You could call it dirty. You could call it he was just playing the game of football. But whatever it was, it does not constitute that he should be receiving death threats. This is still a young man trying to make it in life, a guy that's trying to live his dream and hopefully graduate with honors or degree, committed to excellence and go to the NFL. He does not deserve a death threat over a game. At the end of the day, this is a game. Someone must win, someone must lose. Everybody continues their life the next day. Very unfortunate. I'm saddened if there's any of our fans that's on the other side of those threats. I would hope and pray not, but that kid was just playing the best of his ability, and he made a mistake. So I forgive him. See you, our team forgive him. Travis he's forgiven him. Let's move on.
Let's move on.